Today we're just going to talk about sweet, sweet revenge. Let's get into it. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to go back to 1967 for a little bit of a revenge. But before we take that revenge, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here, I would appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about 1967's Point Blank, starring Lee Marvin. Now this movie, the reason I'm reviewing this movie is because my good friends over at Bat and Spider, my good buddy Dale_A from the Bat and Spider podcast, along with his co-host Chuck, just talked about this film about a month and a half ago. And I had seen this film, but it's been a very, very long time since I've sat down and watched this one. And listening to them talk about it made me purchase that on Amazon. You can get that Blu-ray for about $10. And I sat down and watched it, and I felt, what the hell, let's review this thing. This movie came out actually August 31st of 1967. It's an hour and 31 minutes long. This was John Boorman directed this film. This was his first American film. Now, John Boorman's very well known for Deliverance that came out in 72. The other couple notable ones he made was Exorcist 2 in 77. I know he'd like to forget that, along with myself. That movie's awful. And he made Excalibur in 81. Now, Lee Marvin is the star of this film, and he plays Walker. Angie Dickinson plays his ex-wife's sister, Chris, in this film. John Vernon plays Reese in this film, and Carol O'Connor plays Brewster, and he's a part of this crime organization in LA, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Now, this film is very notable for actually being the first film to film on Alcatraz Island. The prison closed in 63, and they filmed this. This was the first film filmed there on the island itself. And the other notable films that were shot on Alcatraz Island was, the most notable one is probably Escape from Alcatraz, starring Clint Eastwood. That came out in 79. And The Enforcer, starring Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry, came out in 76, and they shot on Alcatraz. And if we fast forward to 96, when The Rock came out, The Rock famously shot a lot of scenes and a lot of action scenes on The Rock, or Alcatraz Island. But this was the first one. Now, right in the beginning of this film is basically a revenge story. And Walker, we see Walker get double-crossed by his friend Reese. They're holed up on Alcatraz. Reese realizes that the money they took was not enough to pay his debt to this crime organization, so he shoots Walker, thinking he killed him right in front of his wife, because Reese wants his wife for himself, Walker's wife for himself, and they leave Walker for dead on a stone-cold concrete floor in a prison cell on Alcatraz Island. Well, Walker gets off the island, makes it back to the mainland, gets healed up, and decides to go on a revenge spree, starting with trying to track down Reese. He wants his money, $93,000 that's owed to him, and he wants to kill Reese. And basically he finds his ex-wife because he thinks her and Reese shacked up. He's getting fed information from this other guy, who we find out later is involved in this organization. He's higher up in the organization. And he finds his wife, but Reese is not there. And his wife dies shortly after. He finds out where Reese is held up, and gets the help of Chris, Angie Dickinson, who's his ex-wife's sister. And he's held up in his penthouse in this apartment building that's run by the mob, and it's very heavily fortified. And he distracts everybody and gets his way in, and Reese ends up getting killed by falling off the top of the building and landing in the street. But Walker is still without his money, and he wants it, so he starts tearing through this organization. And finally, at the end of the film, Carol Connor's Brewster takes him to Alcatraz because the drops are still happening. So he goes, I can get you your money. Let's go to Alcatraz. The drops still happen. The schedule has changed, but the drops still happen. I can get your money. And actually, Brewster gets killed by this gentleman who has been giving Walker all this information. And if we find out that he is actually one of the heads of the organization, and he wanted Brewster out of the way anyway. And Walker kind of just fades into the night, and he doesn't ever gets his money, but he did get his revenge on the people who wronged him. And that is pretty much Point Blank. What to like about this film? Well, Lee Marvin's great here. And I kind of miss movies like this where the star or the main guy says less. Now, I've said that about some other stars in movies about how they wanted to say less during the film. And it's actually refreshing. Nowadays, although I love movies from all eras, we have a tendency to talk way too much, and they fill the quiet moments with just people just rambling and rambling and rambling. These older films, it's lost art of just letting the scene play out with as little dialogue as possible. And Lee Marvin is a master of that here, where he says very little in some scenes, but he says a lot with just his facial expressions, the way he looks at people, his actions. And I really, really miss that in movies, where we don't need every second of the movie just filled with somebody talking. Even if it's just, it just feels like nowadays, they just feel like every scene needs somebody talking left, right, and center. And these older movies, it's refreshing to go back and rewatch these films where the silence and the way the person's acting says everything. You don't need him explaining what he's going to do. You can just tell he's pissed or he's thinking, contemplating something. It's just refreshing to go back and watch these films from a bygone era where that was something that even the star of the movie would rather say less than say more. Clint Eastwood is famous for saying that, he always wanted to talk low, talk slow, and say as little as possible. And it's a lost art form to actually act without saying a bunch of words and, not overstating what your plans are. And that seems to be a tendency of today's films. And watching that was definitely refreshing in that regard. Lee Marvin's great. The whole cast is great here. John Vernon's great. And actually, I read where Lee Marvin didn't think John Vernon was going to work out. He didn't think he was a strong enough presence. But watching the film, I think John Vernon's great here. And obviously, he went on to have a long career of playing. Well, he played the mayor in Dirty Harry. He played Dean Warmer in Animal House. Plus, he was in a bunch of other films. But he was always good at playing the scumbag. And he's great here as that as well. And they actually they didn't remake the movie, but they made this movie based off the same script and book with Mel Gibson in Payback. If you've ever seen that film, that's a really terrific crime thriller as well. If you've never seen it, check it out. I love the way it's shot. It's nice. It's a nicely shot film. I mean, John Boorman did have a bunch of really good films over the years during his career. Exorcist 2, not one of them. I think that was just littered with just really bad ideas. I love the setting on Alcatraz when they do shoot there. I've been to Alcatraz. It's cool to see it on film, even though it's been in other films, but knowing this is the first one, it's cool. The action, the story, the revenge plot, I love it all. It's a very simple story told in, back when this came out, a very novel way. And I know Steven Soderbergh has been quoted as saying he steals from this film often when he makes his own films because he really loves this film. Again, like I said, this is the first film ever shot in Alcatraz. The prison closed in 1963. They shot this. This came out in 1967. The only time during the film we actually see Walker smile is in the flashbacks. If you ever notice it when you watch this film, the only time he smiles is during the flashbacks. It was actually Lee Marvin's idea when Walker goes into the office and leans over and whispers to the secretary before he goes into the office to take the guy to go get the money. It was his idea to just whisper to her his threats without the audience hearing it. That was actually Lee Marvin's idea, and it plays beautifully just to look on her face. And it plays out nicely without having to say what he was going to do. And the first Hollywood film, this was actually John Boorman's first Hollywood film. He was a British director. This is the first time he came to Hollywood, and he does a really nice job here. So it's very well directed, very well acted. I really love this film. I hadn't seen it in a very long time, and listening to my friends over to Bat and Spider podcast really made me want to watch it again. That's why I purchased that Blu-ray. Again, you can get that on Amazon for about $10. That's what I paid for it. But at the end of the day, this is just a great film, and I would give this one a 9.5 out of 10. I like it that much. 9.5 out of 10 for Point Blank. Have you ever seen this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. Share this video. I would appreciate that. I have some Chuck Norris movie reviews coming up. I'm going to do Good Guys Wear Black, Force of One, and then we're going to do Valentine's Day's around the corner. I have some plans for Valentine's Day. I want to review Valentine with Denise Richards. A slasher film that's kind of been forgotten, but I always enjoyed that film. And I'm going to also do Robert Englund's Phantom of the Opera, directed by Dwight Little. So those are coming up for Valentine's Day, amongst many other reviews coming up. I'm actually planning on doing a live stream coming up in February about Valentine. I'll give you more information about that as we get closer and I figure what we're going to actually do out, because I might have a guest on that live stream. But until next time, bye.